Again, High Algebra 1 Foundations. So before we left for our e-learning break here, we were working on graphing, and we went through the beginning of these graphing linear equations notes. We talked about how to decide if an equation is linear. That's what we were doing in this first section here. Decide if it's a linear equation. And remember, if you can get it to look like that ax plus by equals c, and that means it can be linear. We talked about finding x and y intercepts. So remember, if you want to find the x-intercept, we're going to plug in 0 for y. If you want to find the y-intercept, you want to plug in 0 for x. And then that's one way we can graph a line, is we can find the x-intercept, find the y-intercept, and then graph our line. And the other way that we started talking about was making a table of values to graph our equations, or our linear equations. Step one is always get it solved for y, and then we can pick some x values to plug in and get the y values that go with them to make the ordered pairs, and then plot those points on our graph to make our line. Good points to plug in. You always want to do a couple negative numbers. You want to do a 0 in the middle, and then a couple positive numbers. And that way you've got a nice spread on your graph. Okay, so then we had plotted our points here. I just never drew in my line. Once you've got those, you can draw your line, put arrows on the end of each side of your line so that you've got, or you can tell that the line goes on forever. Okay, so we had a couple other examples on here. I'm just going to go through those today so you guys can finish up your notes. You should have these on paper already. Hopefully you came in and got all your stuff. So we'll go through a few more. Okay, so our next one, you've got x or y equals negative 4x plus 8. This is the equation we want to graph. So I'm going to pick those same 5 numbers, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2, and then we plug those in for x. Now this column here, if you do this in the future, you don't have to make that whole column if you don't need to, but if you want to show your work to make less mistakes, you can. Okay, so I'm just going to plug it in, and really I'm just going to write this side of the equation, so that's what I need to plug in x. Okay, so we would do negative 4, I'm going to plug in negative 2 for the x, plus 8. So negative 4 times negative 2, that part is positive 8, and then 8 plus 8 will give us a 16. If I plug in negative 1, negative 4 times negative 1 plus 8, that's 4 plus 8, so that makes 12. Okay, now when I make these two pairs, I notice right away that those y values of 16 and 12, those are not going to fit on this graph, right? This only goes up to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it only goes up to 7. So those points, this one and this one, are not going to fit on my graph. So maybe at this point, I make the decision that, you know, those points are too big. So maybe it would have been a better idea to instead pick more positive numbers. So maybe I go with 3 and 4. So sometimes you choose your points, and you might have to adjust them to make them fit better on your graph. Because if I keep going with 0 here, negative 4 times 0 plus 8, that's just 8. Now that's only 1 above, so that's much better. Negative 4 times 1 plus 8, that would be negative 4 plus 8, which is 4. And negative 4 times 2 plus 8, that's a negative 8 plus 8, that's 0. And now if I keep going with 3 and 4, negative 4 times 3 plus 8, that's negative 12 plus 8, so that's negative 4. And negative 4 times 4 plus 8, that's negative 16 plus 8, which gives us a negative 8. Those ordered pairs will fit much better on our graph. So now I can write my ordered pairs for, come on, pen. Of course, not going to get stuck. Okay, 4, negative 8, 3, negative 4, 0, 8, 1, 4, and 2, 0. Okay, so then if I go plot all those points, 4 down to negative 8, I'm just going to go 1 off my graph there. 3, negative 4 goes here. And I've got 0, 8, that's up here. 1, 4. I'm doing these out of order here. And then 2 is at 0. see how our points line up in a line. We can draw straight as we can. Whoops. To make our line. Okay, so sometimes maybe adjust your input values so they fit in there a little bit better. Okay, now our next one is a little bit different, right? This equation looks a little bit different. It just says y equals -1. So if I pick my x values over here like I did before, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Well, my next step would be to take this x value and plug it in to this equation. But there's no x in this equation, so there's nowhere to plug it in. So if I were to write that equation, it's just -1. There's nowhere to plug in my x. Well, so what does y equal? -1. And that's exactly what this equation says. It says that y equals -1, no matter what. So for all of these x values, the y is not going to change. It's just going to stay -1. So then our net ordered pairs will have all y values of -1. So let's see what this looks like when we plot those points. So -2, -1, -1, -1, 0, -1, 1, -1, and 2, -1. So all those points end up making, if we connect them with a line, this lovely horizontal line. Because the y value never changes, our x value can be anything, but the y value will always be -1, so it makes a horizontal line. So this can happen also if you get a line that's like x equals 2. Well, now the x value is always going to stay the same, but the y value will always change. So if you get an equation like this will make a vertical line. Okay, so if you only have one variable, you're going to end up with either a horizontal or vertical line. You need the two variables to make a diagonal line. Okay, so that's the rest of our notes from that day before we left for our e-learning break here. So now you should be able to go back and finish up the homework that you got that day. I believe that was homework number 2 for this unit. So if you've got that, great. If not, I'll make sure I get it posted here to OneNote. You can get a blank version of it and do it there. A lot of our other homework throughout this unit is probably going to be on Delta Math, which you guys have used before, but I'll send out instructions and everything for you again, so you can do that. This first homework, we'll just do it on paper like we were going to, and I'll have you guys turn it in on OneNote. Make sure you've watched the e-learning info video that kind of shows you how to do that. All right, good luck. Make sure you ask any questions you've got. You can go to that chat room, type anything you need to at any time. If it's not during one of our live class times, I will get back to it as soon as I can. But do your best and let me know if you need help. Thanks.